Terence Crawford, his name keeps coming up, and I know he's a lot smaller than you. Is that a fight that you would ever consider under any circumstance?
You know, I always say if the fight make sense, why not? But he's not in the...
Canelo Alvarez just responded harshly to Terence Crawford's call for a fight. Alexander Usyk, on the other hand, thinks that Crawford will win. Canelo will lose if they finally fight in the early months of 2019. The WBA, WBC, and WBO heavyweight champion Usyk believes that Crawford's technical skills will be key to beating Canelo's size and strength, but the fight between the two hasn't been set in stone yet. His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh, agrees with it. Reports say he agreed to pay Canelo a fair amount for the fight. Canelo would have to be very rich to want to fight a welterweight and risk ruining his image, but no one knows the exact amount. Terence wins, in my book. This Terence is not the same person. Alex Usyk talked about the 3 knockout rule. Terence works on 2 sides, on the right and the left. Usyk thinks Terence Crawford will beat Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds next year if the fight goes as planned. Usyk also said that he thinks Terence can box like a big guy because Floyd Mayweather Jr. made more than $200 million for his fight with Manny Pacquiao. Canelo Alvarez might seek comparable compensation, given that he's facing a fighter reminiscent of Money May. However, Turkey is unlikely to agree to such a high payout for a Canelo-Crawford matchup, as it's expected to fall short of the blockbuster pay-per-view figures generated by Mayweather versus Pacquiao in 2015. Both of those fighters were big draws on pay-per-view. By contrast, Crawford has had just a single successful PPV event in his 16-year career, which came against Errol Spence in 2023. However, it was Spence, not Crawford, who was the true catalyst behind that success. Crawford is expected to adopt a strategy similar to Mayweather's when facing Canelo, focusing on a tactical approach of constant movement and elusive footwork to avoid danger and win a decision. Despite the lack of fireworks in the fight, Crawford will likely emerge successful. Crawford's methodical game plan will likely see him achieve his objective of outmaneuvering Canelo and keeping out of the knockout zone. Crawford's chances of outlasting Canelo in a brawl are slim. Instead, he'll emulate the Mayweather strategy, trying to box his way through all 12 rounds. Fans of technical boxing will relish the Canelo-Crawford bout, while those who crave non-stop action might be disappointed.
Like he say, if he beat Germonta, no, everybody's gonna say, yeah, he's too small,
Right.
and this and that. So it's the same thing. I respect Crawford. He's a good fighter, but we're not different.
It turns absurd when a current champion faces off against an opponent who's leapfrogged 3 weight classes to vie for a world title, such as if Crawford were to ascend to challenge Canelo for his WBA, WBC, and WBO super middleweight belts. Canelo stands to gain nothing from this bout and will likely face public scorn regardless of the result, even though Crawford faced Israel Madoff this Saturday. A fight between him and Canelo would still be viewed by fans as the Mexican superstar defending his title against a welterweight. One fight doesn't transform Crawford into a junior middleweight in the eyes of the public. However, Crawford has made it clear that his ultimate goal right now is to face Canelo at super middleweight. The Mexican fighter has previously downplayed the significance of this challenge, arguing that defeating a smaller opponent wouldn't earn him much respect. Yet Bud remains relentless. His drive for victory rivaled only by David Benavidez, who has battled his way through the top contenders at 168 to secure a chance at facing Canelo. Neither fighter has managed to find success this year. Canelo is set to face Edgar Berlanga on September 14th, defending 3 of the 4 big titles after losing the IBF belt. Floyd Mayweather, a 50-year fighting great, discussed the problem with fight hype and suggested that Crawford and Benavidez square off. He said, "I think he's a super skilled fighter, a very talented fighter." I thought about this. If he wants to go to 168 and he wants to fight Canelo and Benavidez wants to fight Canelo, they can't get Canelo. They can fight each other. Benavidez and Crawford, both of you guys are chasing one fighter. Y'all can't get that fight, then y'all should say, we'll fight each other. It's an interesting idea, though it seems quite improbable. Bud has previously stated that his goal is to have Canelo's name etched onto his record rather than just facing a larger opponent. Meanwhile, Ben Ides has recently committed to the light heavyweight division for the foreseeable future, especially after his attempts to lure Canelo into a title defense fell short. Meanwhile, Sean Porter has told Toport that Crawford is surely capable of defeating Canelo. Now retired from the ring, Porter has shifted gears to become a pundit in Lay, gearing up for Crawford's WBA super welterweight world title showdown against Israel. Madoff this Saturday night. Should the American triumph, he will become a member of an exclusive group of 4 weight world champions. Crawford's goals, however, don't stop there. In the end, he wants to move up 2 more classes to face Canelo, the reigning super middleweight champion, but first he needs to defeat Madoff, who has never lost. Porter told Topor when asked what Madoff will be up against on Saturday. He's just a stone-cold athlete. He's extremely confident and obviously extremely skilled and gifted. Madoff is up against a lot of athleticism. He's up against a lot of speed, a lot of power, and he's up against an intellect that can't be copied. Porter added, "So if I were in Madoff's place, I'd say, what you do is don't divert from what you do. You have to keep pushing, and maybe you'll push a button at the right time." Speaking of Crawford versus Canelo, Porter said that his former rival can win. He even went so far as to say that depending on Crawford's performance against Madrimov, it might not strike him as an upset if Canelo were to fall to the naturally smaller fighter. Porter argued it's a realistic fight. In some way, it would be an upset if Terence won, but I don't think so, especially if he does something amazing on fight night here against Move. I think it's not an upset. That's a 50-50 to me. And I do think Crawford could beat Canelo when asked if he thought Madoff, the fighter he is supporting, could defeat a generational talent like Crawford. Eddie Hearn explained that timing was crucial. He acknowledged his role in championing Israel Madoff, but recognized that Madoff was a major underdog. Hearn mentioned that Madoff held many of the necessary qualities, such as technical skill, IQ, strength, and durability. Noting that he was not a weak puncher or an unfit 154-pounder, while Madoff could technically match or come close to matching Crawford, Hearn admitted that Crawford was a generational great and therefore highly favored. Hearn also suggested that, ideally, Madoff would have benefited from 2 or 3 more fights, but he emphasized that seizing the opportunity was important when asked whether Crawford wanted to fight Canelo and if Canelo was interested in the matchup. Eddie Hearn replied that Canelo was not particularly keen on the fight. He felt that beating the smaller Crawford would not earn him much credit regarding whether Canelo would take the fight after facing Ed Berlanga on September 14th. Hearn stated that Canelo would consider any fight if the financial terms were right. He noted that Canelo had no fear of Terence Crawford and was more worried about the recognition he would receive for the victory. Hearn stated if he wins that fight, it's like he beat a 154-pounder and a 147-pounder who just came up. If he loses that fight, it's like, oh, he got beat by a 154-pounder with Canelo. He chooses fighters based on the styles that he likes. I truly think that's why he chose Edgar Berlanga and Hamongia. He likes guys that come forward and fight him. Hearn also stated that Canelo preferred opponents who come forward and engage rather than those who move and box from the back foot, as evidenced by his discomfort with Jermell Charlo's movement. Hearn said, "I don't think he likes meeting fighters who move. His body is probably not quite what it was when Jermall Charlo ran off the back foot." Canelo didn't like it or enjoy it. He wants someone that comes to fight. He'll fight anyone. He also, in his head, has a number that he thinks fights are worth. It's just whether that's realistic when asked about his on-again, off-again friendship with Alvarez, who will next fight Matchroom's Berlanga on a PBC Low show. Hearn described their relationship as very honest. He considered Alvarez a friend and one of the greatest fighters of their time, a pound-for-pound great and a legend. Hearn stated that he understood Alvarez well in their business deals, which allowed them to work together effectively and shake hands on agreements. Hearn stated that he wasn't offended when Alvarez took a better chance elsewhere. He acknowledged that Alvarez would always choose the best opportunity for himself rather than out of loyalty. He stated that if circumstances were equal, Alvarez would likely choose to work with them. Hearn mentioned that when they signed Berlanga, he had promised to secure a fight with Canelo, originally thinking it to be a Matchroom-promoted event. Instead, they had to make a deal with PBC for the fight. Hearn said Benavidez is now competing at 175s. He's a huge guy, and in the ring, without a recovery clause, he is going to be the bigger guy. I think Canelo knows that's a tough fight, whether or not it's real that he wants $150 million or he put that out there to get close to $100 million. He wouldn't hesitate to take that fight. There is no part of him that feels like he wouldn't win it. He knows that rivalry means big money. On the other hand, Terence Crawford is extremely dedicated to his bout against Israel Madrimov. This fight marks His Excellency Turkey Alal Sheikh's inaugural event in the US as part of the Riyadh season, despite his desire to end his career on a high note with a clash against unified super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez. Crawford stays resolutely focused on the task at hand, undistracted by the swirling speculation about a future showdown with Canelo with world titles in 3 different weight classes and being the first fighter to achieve undisputed status in 2 of them. Terence Bud Crawford is set to fight for the WBA Super Welterweight and WBO Interim Super Welterweight belts against Madrimov. His focus is unmistakable. During a recent appearance on Logan Paul's hit show Impulsive, the 36-year-old shared his intense mindset as he prepares for this high-stakes bout on Saturday. During the podcast, the conversation effortlessly shifted to the intriguing possibility of Crawford clashing with Canelo Alvarez in the future, a matchup that's currently capturing global attention. Crawford disclosed that his team's guidance has consistently been forthright and honest, unlike the typical echo chamber of yes men. This led Mike Mack to question whether Crawford's upcoming August 3rd super welterweight bout serves as a precursor to a possible showdown with Canelo. Crawford's answer to Mack's inquiry seemed to counter the obvious fact that he is eager to meet the Mexican great. Crawford quickly responded with a sense of ease in his voice that he never views fights as stepping stones, emphasizing that it's all about the moment. His attitude on life was the reason behind his composed and confident manner. Crawford explained that he might not wake up tomorrow, so he prefers not to think about things far into the future. He stressed that his sole focus is on moving, and he stated that he is neither worried about nor thinking about Canelo. Well, here's the really cool part. Crawford has talked about Canelo even though he may not be considering him right now.
But in a small way, is this a stepping stone to your dream fight?
Never.
Okay.
Never. I don't look at fights as stepping stones because it's about now.
Yep.
I might not wake up tomorrow, so I don't never like to think ahead. My main focus is August 3rd. I'm not worried about Canelo. I'm not thinking about Canelo. I'm just focused on Israel Madrimov.
Given Crawford's impressive successes in the sport, there's no need for him to play games. In his recent interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour, Crawford was refreshingly candid, giving no excuses for his decisions. The reality is, while Bud Crawford has his sights set on Canelo, the public's attention is fully fixed on Jiren Boots' Enis. So speaking to Helwani, Crawford stated that at this point in his career, he wants fights that make the most sense, and that's not Boots. He added, "Canelo is going to bring way more to my reputation and way more to my bank account." A person would find it difficult to disagree with such a reaction, considering what the potential Hall of Famer has accomplished thus far. He would definitely make a favorable living against Enis, but nothing compares to what a fight with Canelo might accomplish for him and his reputation. Canelo Alvarez, praised for his resilience and masterful counterpunching, stands as the dominant force in boxing since Floyd Mayweather's retirement, with an impressive tally of 61 wins from 65 bouts and only 2 losses. His formidable prowess is unmistakable. Consequently, numerous competitors take their shots at him, though many fail to land a hit. Crawford, however, thinks that defeating the 34-year-old would catapult him to boxing stardom with his trainer, eagerly anticipating the showdown. That's how he is. Brian McIntyre said of Crawford's strive for greatness in the boxing scene that he added, he has to know he wants to press to that next level. Always the conversation follows a commitment by Tuki Alik, chairman of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, who promised enticing proposals for both contenders in the upcoming match. This bout is possibly slated for early 2025, according to current projections. Crawford's remarkable record says volumes: 40 bouts, 40 victories, and 31 knockouts. His impressive career has elevated him to champion status in the lightweight division and won him the title of undisputed ruler in both the light welterweight and welterweight classes. He has also claimed wins against top-tier fighters like Errol Spence Jr. and Sean Porter. Kell Brook and Amir Khan are showing that at 36 years old, he's unafraid to take on the best and hasn't merely padded his record with unchallenging opponents. Crawford steps into the ring once more on Saturday, August 3rd at Hearn Stadium in Los Angeles, California. He will go up against Israel Madoff for the WBA super welterweight title, aiming to claim his position as a 4-division champion. Alal Sheikh will appear on the Riyadh season card. Even though the match is taking place in North America, this will give him an up-close view of one half of the Canelo versus Crawford showdown. Meanwhile, it appears that the feud between Terence Crawford and Teofimo Lopez has been escalating, with Crawford lately dismissing Lopez's provocations. This clash sparked earlier this year when Lopez took aim at Crawford's career, and it appears the animosity has only grown since then. In a recent SportsCenter interview, Crawford discussed several fighters with notable enthusiasm, commending talents like Shakur Stevenson, Devon Davis, and Isaac Cruz. However, his comments took a sharp turn when he addressed Teofimo Lopez. Lopez Crawford didn't hold back, dismissing the WBO super lightweight champion with blunt trash talk, underscoring a deep split between them. Tensions escalated as Crawford, set to clash with Israel Madoff, reignited his hatred towards Lopez in a recent SportsCenter interview when questioned about the chance of a future bout with Lopez. Crawford was unequivocally dismissive, remembering his earlier outburst following Lopez's match against Jermaine Ortiz.
Wait, what you think about it?
This reaction shows Crawford's hesitance to consider a fight with Lopez, even though Lopez is eager to step up and wait and face him. Lopez hasn't hesitated to criticize Crawford's past opponents, saying that they weren't playing their best when they faced him during a January interview with Boxing Social. Lopez put doubt on the legitimacy of Crawford's victories, mentioning Errol Spence Jr.'s ASI troubles and recalling controversies involving opponents such as Jose Benavidez and Kell Brook. Lopez implied in his comments that Crawford has profited from taking on boxers who have been compromised, which is why he treats Lopez with disdain despite the ongoing exchanges. Crawford has consistently shown respect for fellow fighters like Canelo Alvarez and Devin Haney. Nevertheless, his remarks about Lopez reveal a palpable disdain, underscoring his belief that Lopez does not measure up as a real contender.
I said that you received a gift tonight, and that's why you were crying after the fight, because you know that you lost.
No, not at all. I cry because I love boxing, man. I bleed for this, man. He can say whatever he wants. Well, he beat a washed up Errol Spence. Get out of here, Spence. Get out of here, like Crawford. Get out of here. If you want to fight me, sign the damn contract. Don't say that it's top rank or anything. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to say it. But they know what it is.
Since his TKO defeat to Terence Crawford in July 2023, the first loss of his professional career, Errol Spence Jr. has been missing from the ring. Although Spence and Crawford were long-standing rivals in the welterweight division, the spotlight has now shifted as Bud sets his eyes on a blockbuster showdown with Canelo Alvarez. In a surprising twist, the Truth has shared his unexpected thoughts on the potential bout. Crawford and Alvarez are currently regarded as two of the premier pound-for-pound boxers in the world, making their possible showdown one of the most anticipated fights in boxing history, although the Mexican fighter has shown scant enthusiasm for a matchup with the Nebraska native. Spence Jr. has publicly supported his former rival, saying that he could be the one to inflict the undisputed super middleweight champion's first defeat at 168 lb. The ex-welterweight champion's thoughts on a possible fight between Canelo and Crawford were shared on X by Michael Benson. The boxing editor at TalkSport, Spence, said if Crawford wants to push himself to be great, let him try to be great. I'm with it. I'd be going for Bud. I don't know if he'll win or lose, but if anybody can pull it off, he can. He's chasing fame. On July 29, 2023, Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. faced off in a landmark event for boxing. They clashed in a fierce battle, each fighting for the honor of being the inaugural undisputed welterweight champion of the four-belt era, with both fighters going into the ring with unblemished records. Anticipations were high for a fight marked by constant exchanges, yet as soon as the bell rang, it was clear that Crawford, known as Bud, dominated the ring despite never having been knocked down in his career. Crawford floored the Truth 3 times before getting a decisive TKO in the 9th round. Both fighters have transitioned to super welterweight, with the Nebraska native set to make his divisional debut against WBA champion Israel Madrimov. Meanwhile, Spence Jr. is negotiating a bout with WBC and WBO title holder Sebastian Fondor. Rumors are buzzing that the truth might be hanging up his gloves for Ode. In a recent interview leading up to his bout with Madoff, Bud was asked to share his take on the situation. Here's what he had to say. "Like I said, man, I'm only worried about one guy. I'm not missing this guy. He's a tough opponent. It's going to be tough despite beating Errol Spence a year ago. Terence Crawford, according to pundit Tim Bradley, has not been able to gain crossover appeal." Bradley argues that Crawford squandered the momentum from his most important career victory by taking a 13-month hiatus before returning to the ring, and now he's experiencing the repercussions. Bradley adds that sales of tickets for the 22,000-seat stadium in Los Angeles, where he will face WBA junior middleweight champion Israel Madoff this Saturday, August 3rd, are not going well. Crawford has constantly struggled to captivate audiences and never truly stood out as a major attraction throughout his career. The sole exception to this came with his pay-per-view success against former unified welterweight champion Spence last year, a feat many credit to Errol's star power. It was Errol who pulled in the crowd for that fight. Crawford, hailing from Nebraska, has been stepping into the ring each year since 2020, yet he stays relatively under the radar. His tendency to take long breaks has hindered his rise to stardom, and now we're eagerly looking to change that. Had he been engaging in 3 to 4 bouts annually, facing off against high-risk adversaries, he would probably have had no problem filling up the stadium. Fighters who approached their craft as a sideline endeavor for 4 years straight. As Crawford has seldom achieved star status, definitely not, replied boxing commentator Tim Bradley to ProBox TV. When questioned about whether Terence Crawford has the crossover appeal and promotional power akin to Sugar Ray Leonard's widespread box fame in the 1980s, Bradley commented on the ticket sales, saying if you're paying attention to ticket sales, they're not doing that hot. Despite his undeniable talent, Crawford never quite reached superstar status before his departure from Top Rank. He was a skilled fighter who won titles but fell short in the promotional arena, lacking in charisma. Crawford's interviews often featured terse and unremarkable responses, which did little to enhance his public image. "I was just in LA and asked a couple of managers there, and they said no, the tickets aren't really selling out there. Although Terence is a tremendous fighter, he hasn't hit that superstardom just yet," said Bradley. One of the major hurdles impacting ticket sales is the general public's limited knowledge of Israel Madrimov. His name hasn't yet gained significant traction even among dedicated boxing enthusiasts. Being Crawford's opponent in the 22,000-seat arena may not have been the best choice. It would have been ideal if His Excellency Turki Alik had promoted the Isaac Cruz versus Jose Rayo Valenzuela bout to the main event status while putting the Crawford versus Madoff fight as the co-feature. Bradley said about Crawford that the last time he fought was a year ago. "I don't think he took full advantage of that win over Errol Spence in July 2023. If he had fought a little bit sooner, he maybe could have sold out this place. However, you have guys underneath him that are trying to help sell." Crawford erred significantly by indulging in an extended celebration following his triumph over Errol Spence last year, instead of basking in the glory. He should have displayed greater drive by hitting the gym again in late 2023 and the early months of 2024 to leverage his win over Spence. Bradley said Pitbull Crew brings in a lot of eyes, and he can help sell this arena. You've got Andy Ruiz and guys underneath. Still, the tickets are not moving. It's nothing against Crawford. He's a Midwest guy going out to the West Coast. Pitbull Cruz's bout with Jose Rayo Valenzuela wouldn't be big enough to sell out stadium even if it were the main event. Cruz would have to face off against Trent Davis to draw a full house for this site. Nonetheless, Cruz would still be a stronger choice for the main event compared to the Crawford-Madoff bout, given that fans in Southern California have a strong taste for his dynamic fighting style. But if you're a crossover celebrity, you're able to sell anyway. It doesn't matter where you go in the States. What could have helped was the setting. LA, California. "A lot of marketers don't like to do business here in California," said Bradley. "Make sure to check out some of our other videos on the screen if you liked this one.